Welcome to Eagle Eye.
What a break from Manolo!
Interviewing your favorite USA Eagles around the globe.
Tony Lamb into the 22.
Now, here's your host, Bill Baker.
Hey everybody, welcome to Eagle Eye. On this episode, I check in with Marcel Brache all the way down in Perth, Australia, where he just went into mandatory postseason isolation. We talk about the Western Force's return to Super Rugby, what's next for Marcel in the Force. Also, he's a new dad. What impact does fatherhood have on his rugby future? And we have to talk about that John McEnroe hairdo. All that and more coming up.
Bill, it's lovely to finally meet you.
Oh yeah, it's great to meet you too.
Thanks so much for all that you do for for USA Eagles rugby and for keeping the community in touch with what's going on around the globe. It's an awesome account, and I know a lot of people are quite obviously stoked about following USA rugby around the world. So yeah, again, thanks.
Well, I appreciate it. So man, let's get going. How's family life going for you? How you doing?
Yeah, good. We arrived back on Monday night, and we're in 2 weeks ISO now. So it's just myself, my wife Lauren, and our baby boy West, and we've been very lucky to have a few weeks over on the East Coast in the hub whilst we completed the Super Rugby AU competition, and now we've just got 2 weeks of lockdown here. So it's good. West is around about 8.5 months old, and he's just crawling. So it's should be fun trying to contain him within this area. But it's been a real fun, and we're looking forward to some really intense family time over the next couple of weeks.
I bet. So does everybody on the team need to isolate themselves for a couple of weeks? Is that what's happening?
Yeah, so that's just basically the protocol was returning to the state of Western Australia, is that you're required to do 2 weeks of isolation whilst you regulate yourself back into Western Australian society. So, those are the protocols, and that's sort of, we're very lucky in West Australia to have a really, really good coronavirus lockdown. So, just doing what we can to mitigate those factors.
Congrats on your 50th cap with Western Force.
Yes, thanks so much, Bill. Yeah, it was a few years in the making, but yeah, it's one of those ones that you'll sit back and possibly not even over the next few weeks, but probably at the end of the career and just look back and be very fortunate to have played one game, let alone 50. So yeah, thank you.
Going into this season, unfortunately, you guys were underdogs leading into it. What were the club's expectations going into the beginning of the season?
We put ourselves at a point where we didn't want to go into a competition not trying to be the best version of ourselves. We've had a bit of a hiatus in terms of Super Rugby over the last few years, but have played some competitive fixtures against teams from around the world. The team was extremely successful in the National Rugby competition at the end of last year. And leading into the Super Rugby, we wanted to be as realistic as we were, but also as optimistic as we could be to try and make sure that we didn't sell ourselves short at all. And it certainly was a great learning curve for us. I think there were a lot of positive signs for the club and some of the individuals and players that are involved. And I think it's certainly a lot to take away from us from a positive factor. The fact that we were able to, in some ways compete down to the 80th minute in a couple games, and certainly in large moments of games. At the end of the day, it's a lot of learning. But in going back to your question, it was something that we set a pedestal for. We wanted to try and rise to that and do as best as we could.
For the Force, what's next? Back to Rapid Rugby. I saw some press recently about the owner, looking towards New Zealand. What's going on with that?
That's all information that's pretty much going to be released, I think, to us and then the media in the next few weeks. With regards to what happens next year, I think we're all sort of learning how to deal with the current and post-COVID environment that we live in. So first sort of take in what's just happened with regards to Super Rugby AU, and then we'll hopefully hear more about what goes on over the course of the next few months to a year.
How long are you signed on for?
I'm signed on till the end of October. So we'll see how things go over the course of the next few weeks.
Let's talk about. I'd like to know a little bit about Andrew Forrest, Toogie.
Yeah. He's been obviously the savior of the club, and an extremely passionate one at that. We were very fortunate to have him sort of keep the club afloat over the last few years and take it from, almost being, vanished into thin air to now being back and spoken about in the same breath as Super Rugby team. So, he lives and breathes the club now that he's involved with it, and he's always been a rugby man himself. So he understands the game.
So Twiggy obviously kept you guys alive, started Rapid Rugby, and for what I've seen from a distance, watching some of the matches, online or highlights, you guys have created like an amazing environment in your home stadium, on and off the pitch. Tell me about that environment.
I think Andrew, when he came in, he had an idea as to where rugby union was going, and he sort of felt like the fan engagement and the entertainment around the game itself had lost its spark. Times are changing in terms of how sport is seen by people, and with media coverage and people not really needing to go to the games, he felt it was necessary for bums to be back on seats, and the only way to do that was to make the whole fan engaged experience something that people had never seen before or experienced before. So anything from fan walks leading up to the game, entertainment in and around the fixture itself, blackouts before the game, live performances by great bands. He really, he took it to another level, and then you take it the next step, in terms of some of the rules of the game to try and re-engage the community back in with rugby and a new form of rugby, which was very exciting. And obviously we've had some really, really positive feedback with regards to that.
Yeah, and the new form was shorter halves, the power try, the 50-22 rule. I liked them. I like the 50-22 when the other team doesn't have an amazing kicker. It's great.
Yeah.
Now, how'd you guys work those rules in? I mean, they don't really take a lot of working in, but obviously your game plan had to change.
Yeah, look, for instance, there was a rule where you could not call the mark within your own 22 media area, so and you couldn't kick the ball out on the full. So with regards to rules like that, you're looking at certain strategic ways of exiting, ways in which you're able to protect the catcher under the high ball, and just little things that took a couple weeks of adjusting, but once you got into it, you understood what needed to happen. And at the end of the day, we're all rugby players, so we all understand the gist of rugby and the technical and the tactical ways in which you wanted to play, and it all worked towards an expansive game plan, which our coach Tim Sampson brought in a few years ago, and it's the way that we sort of wanted to play, and took that into Super Rugby AU as well.
So off the pitch with the Force, you do a bunch of community hours like all the other players do. Did I hear something about you also playing with the local club? Yeah.
So we're all trying to re-engage with the community since the beginning of the second Western Force Dawn. So we do quite a bit of work during the week in terms of community engagement. That's all part of Andrew's Minderoo Foundation as well, which is works hand in hand with the Western Force. And Andrew's philanthropic background is obviously something that plays a huge part in the way that we run things as well. So community engagement is part of our focus, and making sure we're good people within the community and spreading the word of not only the Western Force but rugby itself, and what a great game it is. So we're all involved in our local club. Spread around Western Australia, spread around the Perth area, and if not playing for the Western Force on the weekend, then we're able to go out and play for the club as well.
I find that really intriguing about reaching out to the community to share the excitement of rugby or get more and more people involved, because here in the States, that's something we've had to do forever. It's so important to get the community involved and just to show them what the game is. So to hear you say that from about a country like Australia, as far as I've always known, everyone's involved in the sport.
Yeah, I think that the way that America does it is exactly how things need to be in terms of the grassroots need to be the foundation in terms of how the rest of the sport grows. I think in a lot of Australia firsthand, I think they've sort of lost touch with the community and with those grassroots levels. And you're hearing a lot about that in the media of how not enough is being filtered back into, formulating the next generation of rugby play. And especially in Australia, where it's competing with such a large local game of rugby league, a lot of young players who are developed through the union pathways are then not seeing that step up to the next level because they're not able to. So rugby league is able to take those athletes and then create that sort of competition for their game. So it's important to make sure that rugby union always has a footprint. And in America, I think because it's such a community-based game, once you get a hold of it at such a young age, you don't let go of it. I think you're a part of it. And so many guys that I've spoken to and played with in the US Eagles who grew up playing rugby in America have that feeling, and to see the MLR being the next step, not the MLR being the only thing and then trying to filter down, is to me the correct pathway and the way that the game's going to continue to succeed in the States.
Yeah, absolutely. So USA Rugby, you and Gary Gold, I think you briefly crossed paths when you were with Western Province, is that correct?
Yeah, when I was at UCT, University of Cape Town, and Western Province, yeah.
But prior to that, when you were going to school, when you were a schoolboy there, cricket was your sport, right?
Yeah.
Captain of the team, I believe, and rugby was secondary. I don't usually hear, I don't see the correlation between a cricket athlete and a rugby player. It just doesn't seem any connection there.
Well, you must see my physical appearance, and I still look like a cricket athlete who's running around on a rugby pitch. So, no, I think... like most young kids, I'm sure you can attest. You just want to get outside and play sport, and it just happens to be whatever you fall in line with. And for me, in summer it was cricket, in winter it was rugby, and I just happened to be, at that stage of my life, a lot better at cricket than I was at rugby. And for me, rugby was turned out to be a social activity for me in the beginning years of my university career. And, things just happened along the way where I got very lucky and started to understand the game a lot more and enjoy the game a lot more. And I wasn't playing cricket as much. And, before it's 2020 and I live in Australia and I play rugby as a profession. So I think you see plenty of those dual code athletes. It's such a great way to grow up as a kid where you have these different sports that you can fall back on with regards to learning and the understanding of the game and meeting new people. So, I still miss cricket so much. And I think it's such a great game. It was one of my most YouTube things was cricket highlights and that type of thing during isolation. So I still love the game so much, but obviously rugby's been the stepping stone for me, being able to see the world and to get to a place like Perth in Australia. So I owe so much to both games, but obviously I owe a lot to rugby.
Right. You're 32. I think you're playing at the peak of your career, personally. But with that said, and with, as you know, the life of a rugby player, how many more years do you think you have in you?
Well, I think with every sporting player this year, we'd all got a little bit of a sabbatical in terms of sporting time. So less time on the field, less time training, so the legs and the mind and the heart feel a little bit fresher. But in saying that, I've got a young family now, and things get put into perspective quite quickly once that starts becoming your prime focus on a daily basis. So if I'm able to still carry out my duties as a husband and as a father without rugby becoming something that sort of is a distraction to that in regards to either injury or time away, I'll still continue to try and give my best to whatever team or organization I'm involved in, and currently that's the Western Force and USA Rugby.
Right.
I also have to be able to put my hand up and compete with the level that the teams want to play at. So if I'm able to meet those needs, my mind still feels as though I love the game enough to throw my body around for maybe a couple more years. So, I'm not saying that it's going to be a certain amount of time. I think I've always been of the fact of how do I feel at the end of the season? Do I feel like I can do another one? Awesome. And if I have the opportunity to do so, I'll do my best to try and fulfill those standards and requirements that team needs of me.
Have you started an exit plan? Have you thought about that at all? What's past rugby?
Yeah, certainly. Certainly a few things have come to the surface over the last couple of years. When you start getting past that 30 mark, things start to become a little bit more apparent in terms of what your next step is. So I've looked into a couple of things from staying in rugby and how I can stay within the game and give back to the game that's given me so much, to finding things outside of rugby that still give me the same amount of passion and drive that I have in that moment. And becoming a father and a family man is up there is certainly the greatest role that I have. But it's what can I do from a selfish point of view, to fulfill my daily cup as well, from passion driven projects as well that I've looked forward to, and I look forward to jumping into that next stage of life as well.
So I have two daughters. One just went off to college her freshman year. The other one's a junior in high school up here. 18 years flies by in a hurry. I'm just telling you. Now, don't use that excuse to stop playing all of a sudden, but it is an amazing thing to be a part of.
We're obviously on the front end of it, but it's certainly been it's been really special, and I'm sure you can attest, as can all parents, as to what a remarkable and fascinating journey every day is. So yeah, we're certainly looking forward to some fun days ahead.
Well, when he starts walking, watch out. You can't stop him.
Yeah. We were just in so as I said, my wife and my boy came over, and we were very lucky enough to have quite a few of the players' partners come and stay within the hub life that we sort of had, where you could only stay within the confines of your resort or that local area that wasn't a COVID-19 hotspot. And West was the youngest of, I think, about 6 or 7 children. And his development within that time just shot through the roof. But what also was quite apparent was just how soon he's going to be walking and how quickly you need to start moving and start understanding where he's going to be, not where he is at that time. Because going from 8 months to a year goes like that, and certainly what they can do in those few months is incredible. So it was awesome being a part of that family hub and seeing the other kids just interacting with him and him interacting with them. So it was really special, but also quite daunting to know what's ahead of us in terms of chasing down kids. I've got to probably do some more stretches more than anything else in the morning.
Yeah, you have to work on your child tackling skills.
Yeah, certainly so.
So I talked to Gary Gold yesterday, and he asked me to ask you, what's up with the hairdo this season? The John McEnroe do.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. The thing is that if my hairline was actually better, it might actually suit me. But because my hairline starts at about the crown and just sort of tries to fade in, it's looking a lot worse for wear. And I don't think I'm giving John McEnroe a good name by people comparing me to him. Yeah, look, I just think I sort of grew it, and then I was just saying to myself, I'll just cut my hair when West, my young boy, requires his first haircut, just so, we can go and do something together. But it's been tough, man. It's been really, really tough trying to keep this hair under wraps. My wife keeps looking at me thinking, do you want to wear a hat today? Or, do you want to do that interview with a hat on? And I completely understand where she's coming from. So my patience is wearing thin as well with regards to keeping it. So, but then again, I've kept it this long. I feel like it'd be injustice to Westie's first haircut if I cut it now. So we'll see how things go in the next 2 weeks.
Or a lot more. You might get yourself a mullet or
Yeah,
just
yeah, exactly.
All right, Marcel. I really appreciate your time. It's been fun talking to you. Good luck in the future.
Cheers, Bill. Thanks so much, and thanks for all that you do again for Eagles around the world. It's awesome.
I appreciate it, man. Cheers.